Hello, I'm Beth. This yoga practice is going to focus on sun salutations, surya namaskar, salute to the sun. Now, you may have heard that for the summer solstice, sometimes people do 108 sun salutes. That's a lot of sun salutes. The number 108 does have significance. It appears in some of the sacred yoga texts. It's also the number of beads in a mala, which is sort of a prayer necklace used by some Indians. So we're not going to do 108. We are going to do 8 versions of the sun salutations. We're actually going to do 4, each repeated twice. So you can play around with these, see how they feel. There are also going to be variations on the traditional sun salute. So if you don't like the traditional sun salutes or you want to try something new, these are going to be some different variations that you can play with that might not look like the traditional versions. In fact, they won't at all. There's something a little different for you to try. There will be no planks in these versions, partly because it's not my favorite thing, and partly just to do something a little different and new. I will be using blocks definitely for the first round, and then in the subsequent rounds, you can decide whether or not you liked using the blocks and want to add them in yourself. All right, are you ready to go? Find your mat and find your blocks toward the top of your mat. We're actually going to start this first version in child's pose, and we'll do it with the blocks. If you've never done it that way before, I encourage you to try it. So scooch back a bit on your mat. Toes together, knees as wide as you prefer for child's pose. Having the knees wider allows more space for the body in between. And then start to hinge from your hip crease, sending your body out. I'm going to use the blocks in a low height, and I'll use the blocks here to rest my forearms to allow more space for my chest, my body to sink toward the floor. And you can have your fingertips resting on the floor. If not, you can have your hands further out than I do and rest this way. So take a moment here to find a comfortable child's for you, a comfortable place to start, and we'll take about 3 breaths. After your third exhale, begin to rise up, hands on the blocks, and come into an all fours or a tabletop pose. So in your all fours, your hands are directly under your shoulders, your knees are directly under your hips, and your back is not going to form a flat tabletop here because of the blocks. You'll be on a little bit of a slope, but try to have your back of your neck long and in line with your spine. And then we'll do a few cat-cows to warm up the spine a little further. So we tuck the tail, tuck the chin, arch up. That's our cat pose. And we release the spine down to the floor in sort of a hammock shape. That's our cow. Let's do 2 more in each direction. And 1 more. And then we'll find our neutral place in the middle 1 more time. We'll take the blocks and place them about 1 block width or hand width in front of the body to prep for downward facing dog. Make sure that your blocks are not going to slide, that they're on a non-slip surface like a mat. Tuck your toes, begin to shift your hips back as if you were going into child's pose, and then extend your legs, maybe keeping them bent for this first one. So stretch your hips away, stretch your tailbone away, put more weight toward the back, whether your heels touch the floor or not. Then start to arch yourself forward a little bit with your bent knees. Send your knees back down to the ground, and we'll step forward with the right foot. You'll see my foot is staying to the outside of the block to start. I'm going to take the blocks on the medium width, just so I can get a little bit more length in my back in this low lunge. Your back toes can be tucked or untucked, whatever is more comfortable. And then when we will tuck them, this will come into a knee up low lunge. Then press away with your heel, lift your knee, hold here for a moment. And when we hold poses, we breathe, set the knee back down, and place the blocks back on the low end. Shift my leg back out and around. Slide the blocks in toward me so I'm again in an all fours position. And then I'll return to the starting place in child's pose, widening my knees, coming down to my forearms, sinking my whole torso. So that was one round or maybe a half round of that version. We're going to repeat with the left side, and we'll call that 2 rounds. Start in child's, take a few breaths. And then come up to all fours, shift your body so that your hands are under your shoulders, knees are under your hips, and we'll take 3 cat-cows like we did before. So you might notice that these versions of sun salutes really are slower. You could think of them as a warm-up for if you do the more traditional sun salutations. You can start with these versions first. And last one. Come back to neutral. Step the hands a little forward so we have length in the body for downward facing dog. Tuck the toes. I like to send the hips back first. It reminds me not to put a lot of weight on my hands. And then start to gradually lift the hips. Keep sending them back. And the knees never have to straighten. The bent knee version of down dog is a great way to practice, especially in our first rounds of sun salutes. I'm sending my hips back more, sending my heels back more. They don't have to touch. And then back down to all fours. And this time it's my left foot that comes out and around, stepping to the outside of my right hand, the outside of my left hand, and back onto medium heights of the blocks as I extend long in the spine. So I'm looking for length. And with the toes tucked, push the heel away, lift the knee, lengthen the back leg as I get length in the spine. The knee touches back down, swing the front leg back out and around, slide the blocks in a little bit so you're back in your all fours position, and then knees apart, toes together, last child's pose here. And sit up and pause. And that was one round. So one variation on traditional sun salutes. Now we'll go to the second version. This version is going to start in down dog. I am going to continue to use the blocks. I might not use them for everything else. You can continue to use them if it feels right for you. Just make sure, again, your blocks are on a mat so that they don't slip. And if you find yourself slipping, go without the blocks or practice up against a wall. So take the blocks, I'll find down dog first. So remember stepping the blocks a little bit ahead of my shoulders. And then I'll start to tuck the toes, lift up and back for my downward facing dog. And if you'd like to play around with the knees being a little bit more straight legs in this version, you can. Take about 3 breaths here. And then definitely bend the knees as you start to slowly walk your feet toward the front of your mat.
So knees have to be bent for this, and you might bend them more as you get more toward the front, so that your toes land somewhere behind your blocks. Then bent knee forward fold. So think about sending your tailbone back and a little bit up, hinging from the hips, reaching down to the floor of your blocks. Slide your hands up maybe to a higher position of the blocks or up your legs so you can come up to a halfway lift. Exhale back down. Come all the way up to a standing extended mountain. You can look up toward your hands. And then on your exhale, knee bend back down. And come down to the lower height of the blocks. And from here, we'll step back with the right foot. So I'll take the blocks all the way low. So step back with your right foot. So this is our knee up, low lunge. Take a breath here, extend the body long, lengthen the back of the neck so you're looking a little bit forward to the mat. And then step back into your downward facing dog. This was our starting place. So we'll repeat that sequence, and when we come forward, we'll step back with the left. If you need to pause or rest in child's pose, go right ahead and do that. Turn the video off. You're always welcome to do that. If you're ready to continue, find your downward facing dog. And then bend your knees. Take those little steps, little baby steps. We're not in a rush to get to the front of the mat. We're stretching as we do this, bending our legs more as we walk forward. Stopping with the feet about hip width apart, toes behind the blocks. Folding at the hips, getting a deeper fold at the hips to send the legs toward straight, but they don't have to come straight. And then sliding the hands up the blocks or up the body to get a halfway lift with a little press of the hands into the legs or the blocks to extend the back long. Sometimes I like to then slide the hands up to hips, press into my feet to come all the way up to standing, reach up tall, extended mountain pose. And then we'll go the other way. Exhale, bend the knees, touch back down. You can come up to another half lift here if you'd like. And then knees bent, hands on the blocks of the floor. This time we'll step back with the left foot. Low lunge with the left foot. Same principles of pushing the heel away, bending into the front leg, keeping the back long and strong, looking a little ahead of the mat. And then next breath, step back into your downward facing dog. You might have to replace the feet like I did. 3 breaths in the final down dog of this sequence, long stretch. And then you can bend your knees and come down. Our next version is going to start standing at the front of the mat. We'll work our way to the back of the mat, and then we'll repeat the sequence. So make sure that you have plenty of room there. I won't use the blocks for this one. If you want to use the blocks, if you liked how we use the blocks, if you want to use the blocks for a part of the sequence, feel free to do that. So this is sequence number 3 that we're also going to repeat 2 times. Step toward the front of your mat. Find your mountain pose, and that's the place where your feet are comfortable and solid on the ground. You might be hip width, you might be a little bit further or a little bit closer. So you can feel strong in your mountain, feel strong like a mountain. And then from here, take a breath in, reach up tall, extended mountain. If you want to add a little bit of a back bend, you can draw your shoulder blades together on your back, project up with your chest. And then exhale, a little bend to the knees as you swan dive into your forward fold. Hinge to a half lift. Come back down, hands plant on the floor or the blocks, and we'll step back into an all fours position. So that same all fours that we did to start with your hands under your shoulders, knees under your hips. From all fours, we'll move into a puppy dog pose, sometimes called a heart opener. So keeping the knees over the hips over the knees, I'm going to slide back on my mat a little. Slide your hands forward. Notice that my arms are straight. My arms are pretty much in my down dog position. My hips are staying up as I begin to sink my chest toward the mat. My head touches the mat. It's okay if yours doesn't. You can be here. You can use a block under the forehead. So this is puppy pose. Hips in the air, yet stretching back, stretching away from the hands. And then on your exhale or on your next breath, begin to slide forward as you place the forearms on the mat. Stretch the legs back, coming forward into a Sphinx pose. So our elbows are under the shoulders. I'm actively pressing into my forearms, feeling as if I'm pulling my chest forward and also pushing my body a little bit more up. This is a little gentle back bend here. You notice that I pause, I breathe. And then from Sphinx, I'm going to slide my hands back in as I round my back up, touching my toes together. I'm going to come into Child's at the back of the mat. And from Child, I'm going to keep my hands extended, tuck my toes, and come up into downward facing dog. Now from downward facing dog, I'm going to come into a standing forward fold. So you can start to walk the hands in with knees bent, or you can touch the knees all the way down to the ground. Either way, bend your knees, begin slide walking your hands in. Your heels come to the floor, your knees are bent, you're now in your forward fold at the back of the mat. And then breathe in, reach up overhead. Exhale, release. So round 2 of this version number 3, we'll start at the back of the mat and we'll do everything in reverse. Breathe in, reach up. Add a little bit of a baby back bend to this if you'd like, looking up. Exhale, loosen your knees as you hinge and swan dive forward, standing forward fold. You can take your half lift here. And then bend your knees and either walk into all fours or directly into downward facing dog. So if you walk to all fours, you just walk there first, take your hands out, and then come into your downward dog. Stretch back here. From downward dog, bend the knees, touch them down, toes together into child's pose. From child's, we'll slide forward this time into Sphinx pose. So stretch the legs back. Adjust the arms so that the elbows come under the shoulders or maybe even a little bit forward. Actively press into your forearms, pulling the torso forward and up at the same time. Next, slide your hands back in so that you can come up to your all fours position. Hands under shoulders to start, and then slide the hands forward as your hips stay up into puppy pose. From puppy back into all fours. Tuck both toes so you can begin to walk your feet forward into your standing forward fold here. Come to your halfway lift. And if you like, slide your hands all the way up to your hips, elbows back, shoulders back. hinging up to standing, and we have our last round already. So this is version 4. We'll do 2 rounds. This is the one that will maybe look closest to traditional sun salutations. These are going to be lunge salutations. Find your mountain pose, be toward the front of your mat. Take a breath in as you reach your arms up. We're going to be starting to the right. So let's take the right hand and lean left. So this is a little bit of a lateral stretch. We'll take the left hand and lean right. Both hands overhead, little baby back bend. Exhale, soften the knees as you come down into your forward fold. Remember that you can use the blocks here if you'd like. On an in-breath, slide up to a halfway lift. Exhale and release. Place your hands on the floor or the blocks. Step the right foot back to a lunge. And then let the knee come down. So the knee is behind the hip. And you're in a low lunge here. You can have the blocks under your hands. From here, we'll lift up into Anjaneyasana. That's a low lunge with a tall reach. And again, maybe you add a little baby back bend here to your Anjaneyasana. On an exhale, hands come down to the mat, either side of your front foot or to the inside of your front foot as you tuck the back toes and step back into downward facing dog. Breathe. And then bend the knees, step forward with your right foot. So same foot that stepped back, steps forward. Once again, lower the back knee. So you're in this low lunge position. This time we'll keep the left hand on the floor or on a block. I'll show you with a block. Right hand comes to the right hip as you begin to twist open to the right side. Now, I like the right hand on the right hip or kind of sliding into the back pocket as it encourages this opening across my front collarbones. You can add the arm overhead, but sometimes this arm sort of just wigs out in space and isn't really aiding much in the pose. So you can experiment, see what works for you. And then exhale, hands down. Tuck the back toes. You may need to get sort of a little momentum here so that you can put weight into the front foot. Step forward into your standing forward fold. Breathe in, half lift, making the back look flat. And then we'll hinge all the way up to standing. All right, we have one last side in this version, and that'll be our last one. Breathe in, reach up and overhead. And clasp the left wrist this time as we lean over to the right. And switch. Breathe in and up with both hands, little baby back bend. Soften the knees as you swan dive into your forward fold. Slide the hands up into your halfway lift. Little pressing into the hands, reaching back with your tailbone. Exhale, release into your forward fold. So with bent knees, step the left foot back this time into a low lunge, sending the knee down toward the ground. Extend your back first, and then slide your hands up. You can reach them to the top of your thigh to start. Getting your body upright. Take a moment to feel upright, feel that you're even in your hips as you reach up and overhead, maybe a little bit back, Anjaneyasana. And exhaling, folding forward. I'm going to place my hands on my inside of my front foot this time, tuck my back toes, step back into downward facing dog. Breathe into this last downward dog of the day. And then soften the knees so that you can step the left foot forward. So same foot that we step back comes forward. Lower the back knee. Take a moment to lengthen your back. Right hand stays down this time as we move into the twist on the second side. And you can add the arm if you'd like, if it aids in your twist. Hand comes back down, back toes tucked if they weren't tucked already. Little weight into your front foot, getting your forward momentum as you step forward with the back foot, placing it down, forward fold. Breathe in, halfway to lift. And then I'm going to slide my arms up, press into my feet, coming up tall. Let's do one last tall, extended mountain. And exhale to release. So that was our variations on sun salutations for today. I hope that you found a version that you liked. We tried a few different things. Maybe if sun salutations aren't your favorite thing, there was something here that you found for yourself. I'm really all about trying to vary poses for each individual person. In fact, I have a whole series, I'll link to it right up here, called VIP Variations for Individualized Practice or Postures. Give that a try if you haven't tried it before. If you like this, please subscribe to my channel for updates and comment below. I'd love to hear from you on what you didn't like, what worked for you, what you'd like to see in the future. Take care.